Welcome everybody to Bangers and Classics, your favourite podcast of all, apparently. And it features me, James Ruffett, and him, David Malloy. And where's David been this week?
David has been a few places.
Yep.
Made a memorable trip on Monday that I told you all about, James. That it's too
Mm.
long for public consumption, but
Yeah, sure.
suffice it to say that the EV continues to cause woe, despair,
Yeah,
and require the expenditure of copious amounts of dosh, moolah,
yeah,
wonga, whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
So yeah, that's about it. I've not really been to many other places. Can't afford to, mate, nowadays.
No, of course not. No, absolutely.
EV's one thing, but obviously car spots, well, they're quite another. And again, it's been quite a fallow week for me. I've only seen one interesting car.
All right.
Yeah, and that is a tatty, but roadworthy.
Mm.
I'm going to say it's 1972 or 3 Volkswagen Beetle. I'm not sure it's meant to be red and it's faded or blood orange. Its colour has been affected A by weather and age, and B by having lots of filler and primer on it. But it is still running, and it was parked outside at a certain fast food restaurant. So whoever's got it obviously really does believe in the principle of Bionomics and is keeping it going. So I'm sure you'll wholeheartedly approve of that.
Yeah, good for them. Absolutely.
But that's it. As far as car sports go, nothing else, I'm afraid.
Oh, right. It's very disappointing.
Hmm.
I'm still being stalked by Morris Miners, which is quite entertaining. I'll
Ah,
I'll put a vote in also for bangers because we don't spot enough bangers. But I saw a Toyota Starlet today, a P-plated one, and there was no reason for it still to be used because obviously there's not a lot left of it, and that actually was going from red to pink and various colours in between. So well done to them for keeping it going. And also a Vauxhall Nova, which you just do not see at all. And it was slightly Barry kit, as they used to say in Essex, where it was certainly sort of prepared for teen action, so to speak. So that was quite a thing. But maybe I slipped through a time portal. Maybe I did, pass through the early 1990s and saw that. But there you go. But the main thing this week is just to say to our listeners who have bangers and classics, is that you can get rewarded for driving them,
oh,
for raising a smile in the community. So this week I actually ended up with a few packets of rather marvellous kettle corn popcorn from a lady called Heather. I was doing work in the week, and this gentleman said, "Oh, my wife Heather loves the look of your Mini." So obviously, I was out in the Mini, and I said, "Yeah, that's great," and that was it. And we went outside, and Heather was there, and we had a long conversation. And what she does is make the most amazing popcorn, and there is a connection because my daughter had bought some popcorn. My Mrs. Bangonomics loves popcorn, and ended up with some two free bags of popcorn. Obviously, one for you and one for me. I don't know if you've got yours yet, David. Um, but they were, but it was basically, it was the fact that they loved the look of the Mini, found out that we like popcorn, and we got popcorn. And they refused money, but were the nicest people in the world. I will tell them about this podcast, and if you want the best sort of popcorn in the world, do go to it's www.heatherskettlecornuk.co.uk. So it's Heather's Kettle Corn UK, where you will find, I think they do mail order, because that's I was
mm.
doing mail ordery stuff. So I think they will post it out to you, but it's available in lots of shops, certainly in my area. But it just proved to me, yeah, have a nice car, put a smile on someone's face, get a packet of popcorn. So I did rather well this week.
Indeed, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I noticed I did have a look at that website,
Oh, you
and I
did.
was, oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not such a great fan of popcorn, but my
No.
wife is. She loves popcorn,
Yeah.
and I noticed they do a Christmas blend, so I'll be acquiring some of that in the QT for her. I'm not going to tell her I'm
Fantastic.
doing that. Store up a few brownie points, as it were, or popcorn points, if you like.
Popcorn points. Yeah,
Popcorn
absolutely.
points. That's a new name for it.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just want to go back to the Morris Minor.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
you mentioned before that you saw one driven by what can only be described as an Amazon.
Yeah.
Not a Volvo Amazon, but the other
No.
kind. The other kind. Uh, was she driving one of the?
No, these are bearded old blokes, David. And being a bearded old bloke, I can spot them at several paces. So no, it was. Um, Yeah, it was boring old blokes making the best of their Morris Minor, and they probably did all the work themselves in their garage, I should think, and they've probably got a pit in which to work. So yeah, well done to them. So you sort of start to appreciate what nice cars they are, because it's hard to think of a sort of a better classic really that will do everything that you need it to do. It'll be very economical. They're easy to look after. They're actually quite nice to drive, much nicer than you would ever believe, and it's just a sort of providing it's there isn't rust, and obviously with these ones that I've seen recently, they've been completely purged of rust. These are cars which will last you pretty much forever.
Continuing the topic of old classic cars and unexpected introductions,
Yeah,
when I took the EV to get fixed, I was chatting to the guy who was going to be doing the work on it. And it turned out that he had an involvement in the classic car world. His father and I think his brother, and to a lesser extent him because he was quite young at the time, were involved in making body panels for the EC3000ME, the version of it that was built in Hillington near Glasgow.
goodness
Uh,
me.
yeah, he also was involved in a kit car company. So I'll be chatting to him at greater detail about in greater detail
Mm,
about that at a later stage because he's a very interesting chap indeed. It just goes to show you sometimes if you talk to people about cars, you'll find out the most remarkable things.
that's right.
Yeah, or you get free popcorn.
Well, that's right. Well, that's what's happened to me this week, and dear listener, it could happen to you.
It could, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So news. One thing I think we've both been doing is
Mm.
working on books. And I believe you've got one coming out soon, haven't you?
Well, sort of, David. I mean, it is technically out, but I thought, well, I better give it a read through, and it's technically not finished at all. So I'm reading through it and changing things. But it's an update. It's a reimagining of Bangonomics, because Bangonomics will save the world. That's the title. I've sort of smashed a couple of old books together and put a bit of new stuff in there, but I've got to finish it yet. And I think, as we were discussing Morris Minors earlier on, I do reproduce a bit about an interview I did some time ago with the chap who founded the Minor Centre. Whose
Charles
name?
Ware.
Charles Ware. Yeah, I was struggling for his name there, David. But yeah, very, very nice chap. And so that's reproduced in there, because in a way, he's the man who sort of started it all, just sort of saying reuse stuff. It's better than
Hmm.
throwing it away and buying brand new stuff. So yeah, so I'm doing that. I'm very intrigued to hear what you're doing next, David.
Yeah, well, just doing a second version, a new book that is, of the Ultimate Classic Car Quiz book. It wasn't supposed to happen just now because I was going to write about something else, but for various reasons that you know about, that's not going to happen until next year. Blame that on the EV. So I thought, well, what will we do? Let's write another book in the meantime, and I had enough material to do this one, so that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it with a guy called Russ Wallace, who did the artwork and the formatting for Lesser Spotted Classics. Russ is very good. If you check out his website, it's www.rjwcreativedesign, all lowercase, .co.uk, and you'll see what Russ can do for you. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing and finding out all sorts of interesting things that I didn't know a lot of the time. And I find that's an interesting part of the hobby, is really looking into the history of things and finding the backstories to it. Because sometimes they're far more interesting than the actual car or the artifact themselves. But we'll see how it goes. It'll be out before Christmas,
Yeah.
as will yours. So it's time to move on now to this week's banger or classic. Now, sticking to home territory again for this one, and Mr. Ruppert's going to kick us off, and he's going to tell us his thought on the Triumph Stag. Is it really as bad as people say, James?
Well, no, David. It's basically a two-door Dolomite, isn't it? It's got half a Dolomite engine. It's not got as many doors as most of the Dolomites, and I think it's a classic, isn't it? Really, because it's a thing of beauty, and maybe that's how it should be left. I think it's been very unfairly regarded over the years. Obviously, the problem was it was built at a really bad time for British Leyland, when they sort of struggled to make anything really that resembled a functioning car, and it should have been, a rival to something like a Mercedes SL or something like that. It really should have been on the same page as that, but it never was. So yeah, there was a lot of rush development. It could have been sorted out with a tiny bit of engineering nous, just sorting out the cooling a bit better than it was. I know a lot of people who've had them since, and apart from rust, really, providing you do get on top of the cooling issue. They are pretty good cars, but I'm old enough to be around when what you did is you hoofed out the Triumph Stag engine. You put a Rover V8, or you put one of the Ford V6s in, and that was quite a popular thing to do. And I think it was done to an awful lot of them, and I think people have been retroverting them ever since. I just think the purpose of a lot of classic cars is actually to look good, and it's hard to find a car that looks better than that, really. But I could be wrong.
Mm. Well, remember the people at the hovercraft, James, that lived across the road from me when I was a
I do
teenager?
very much
Yeah.
so.
What do you,
I'd rather like the sound of them, but there you go.
what do you think their car was? What do you think they had?
I
Yep,
don't
they
know.
had a Triumph Stag, a white Triumph Stag.
Yeah,
So that doesn't,
yeah.
lend the Triumph Stag to me in any way, shape, or form.
No,
It's association with them, but being objective as I must be,
yeah.
it's yet another case of what should have been, isn't it?
Oh yeah, very
I
much
mean,
so.
the styling, from some angles, I think it looks great. From other angles, I think it can look a little bit clunky, I have to say. But it's got enough good angles to make it an attractive car.
Mm,
I think with a little bit better detailing and possibly a slightly prettier front end, it could have been Britain's answer to the Fiat Dino in terms of looks.
mm,
The Dino Spider, that is. But as you said, James, it came along at a bad time. It came along not long after the merger of British Motor Holdings and Leyland. And there was all sorts of pandemonium kicking off at the time, lack of investment, lack of new models in the blocks, factories that were overstaffed, being honest about it,
mm.
and bad management and bad unions. You had an unholy mixture. And out of that came a lot of cars that on paper should have been fantastic, but in reality were a little bit compromised. And that's true of the Stag. The big problem, obviously, was its engine.
Yeah,
In so many ways. I mean, it was prone to overheating, but also some of the castings weren't very good. The obvious solution would have been to have put a Rover V8 engine in it from the start. You'd have
yeah,
tried and tested engine. There are a lot of reasons why that didn't happen. One of them that was stated was that they couldn't build enough. And I think Spen King, who obviously is a pivotal figure in British Leyland at that time, I think he's on record as saying that he accepted that explanation and he later wished that he hadn't. They'd looked into it more because it might have solved a lot of problems. This Triumph Stag is 3 litre engine and it only
yeah.
produced 143 horsepower. Even by the standards of the day, that's not a lot. And it
No,
was unreliable. So it wasn't a particularly quick car. It was quite a stylish car. It was an interesting car, obviously, with its targa top, which was really born out of necessity. Otherwise, if you hadn't had the cross member there, it would have shaken itself to bits. I mean, literally, it just wasn't, it lacked torsional rigidity. But they put the T-bar in, and actually it works. It works for the looks, and it works for the stability of the car. So that was good. Over time, a lot of problems with the flaws with the engine have been rectified, and what you can now have is a Triumph Stag that actually works, which is great. It's just a pity they couldn't have done that 50 years ago. It really is, because they only built, I think, 26,000 or so of them in 7 years, which is nothing really when you think about
no.
it. And British Leyland needed the Triumph Stag to be a much bigger success than that. However, James, in Britain alone, nearly 6,000 of them are still on the road, and the others soaring.
Yeah,
That's quite remarkable,
it
considering.
is, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So it just shows the affection of which these cars are held. So I have to say, with reservations about the engine and the usual comments about BL management, etc., I'm going to have to call it a classic because it's held in such high regard by so many people that it would be wrong to call it a banger because it really isn't a banger. It never was a banger. It was just a compromised car. Then the compromises, the difficulties have now been eradicated, and you can have the car it was always supposed to be.
Absolutely, and obviously Hazell had one out of Hazell on ITV.
He did.
So there you go, written by Al Tell. It's and it was pretty much the starring role in that, wasn't it?
Terry Venables, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, there's a guy we could write a book about. Maybe we should. Yeah, again, another character. The agents wouldn't get kicking him out nowadays.
No,
So anyway, Hazel drove one, and that's good enough for you, obviously, James.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah. Right, so we're agreed. We'll call it a classic then. I think. Okay, so we can breathe easily. We're not going to get mugged by the Triumph Stag fraternity this week, at least.
no,
So you mentioned earlier, James,
yes,
the Vauxhall Nova.
I did. Yeah,
Now, Nova, I think, as I mentioned before, I sat my driving test in, and I hated it. I drove one many years later
yeah,
for a road test and really quite enjoyed it.
yeah.
But
They're okay.
But in its later years, it
Mm.
became a bit of a boy racer's car. It used to get 1 litre Novas with exhaust pipes the size of battleship guns, and they sound as if they're going about 600 miles an hour when they were doing about 15 or 20. It was crazy. And in more recent times, it's been replaced by the Corsa, and there's a couple round where I live who are driven by absolute idiots. I think they keep their brains in a jar by their beds and they forget to take them out and put them in the morning before they get into the car. So I was wondering, what do you think is going to be the next car to be driven by a boy racer fraternity who seem to lack brains and responsibility? I'm not saying that all boy racers do, but there's an element among them that does. So I'm just wondering, what do you think of what modern car do you think will take the place of the Corsa in time?
Well, I think, David, what's going to happen is that it's going to be Nissan Leafs because Nissan Leafs are going to be abandoned by the roadside in the coming years, and people will just leave them there. And these young lads, because they will be lads, will juice them up with sort of PP3 batteries, and and they'll get about 2 minutes of insane power from them, and that's what it'll do. And obviously, it would take it through a mini mart front, so they can pick up everything that's inside. So that's what I predict is going to happen. That's my dystopian future, where
Right,
abandoned electric cars will be taken up by the underground fraternity to use in various nefarious ways.
right.
So
See, I've got a vision, not of
yeah,
Nissan Leafs, not even of cars, but of electric scooters.
I really
I think that's where it's going to go. Having said that, you're not going to be able to ram raid much in an electric scooter, let's be honest. You have
no,
to wear, you have to wear a suit of armour, and of course, then the scooter might not
yeah.
have enough power. But yeah, it's an interesting point. And Nissan Leaf is I don't know. I don't know.
That's right. I was going to say Tesla, but I just thought, well, no, probably not. But I can see Leafs being left everywhere
Yeah,
just
yeah,
because no one will really care about them. But unfortunately, there will still be the cult of the Tesla, so people will still care about them. Even if they don't move, they'll park them outside so that they can look at them. But a Leaf, they won't.
I suppose that's probably true. You quite like the Honda Insight, don't you?
I do actually. I have an
Yeah.
awful lot of time for the Honda Insight, which was,
Mm.
the sort of, if you're going to do crazy modernist things, do them like that. It's I think it's a very good little car.
Right, because just going back to last week when we did the challenge, I was looking for something a little bit unusual, and I found a
Mm,
website that imports cars from Japan. And there's
yeah,
a couple of very nice looking Honda Insights on it.
yeah,
On the face of it, I mean, obviously I haven't inspected them closely, etc. Don't know the ins and outs of them, but on the face of it, they look pretty attractive cars. Those ones, though
yeah.
they have about £6,000-7,000. So perhaps you could make your way over there and get one.
What I
Um,
might do, or what you do is you take all the gubbins out and just put a VTEC engine and have immense amount of fun.
thinking about it, the Honda Insight looks like a sort of slightly, I suppose, horizontally squashed version of Ed Straker's car from UFO.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the vibe I rather like. Yeah,
I might have known it. So, there'll be you and whoever else in the passenger seat possibly wearing a purple wig.
yeah, that's it. That'll
We
do.
should, right, exactly, right. Well, that's it. Job done then. Right, we
Yeah.
can move on to the final part of the podcast. But before then, we will take a very quick break. You're listening to Bangers and Classics, the motoring podcast that's a spark plug short of an engine. And it's time for the last part of the podcast now. And we're going to start off with a question sent in by a reader who doesn't actually exist because it's really me. That is addressed to James.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. You said at the end of last week's podcast you were
Yeah,
heading Ingrid Pitt to Transylvania.
absolutely. We're halfway there as we speak.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Oh, but you're taking
yeah,
your time. 'Cause I
yeah.
was going to
That's
say
right.
you left too early. And how the heck am I
Yeah,
supposed to get there?
yeah. No, we're taking the scenic route, David.
Ah, right. Jolly good.
Yeah,
Right. Okay. For Eagles, where Eagles and Rupert's there, is it?
that, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, dokie. Well, fair enough.
Mm,
But since you've got a bit of time on your hands,
yeah.
taking a slow road to Transylvania, you can perhaps do this week's challenge,
Oh,
which
okay.
which I think was quite clear for a change,
Yeah.
or was it?
No. It was very clear. Unless you've changed, unless you've moved the goalposts, David. I don't know.
I can do.
Yeah. Well, you can do. It
I
won't make
can
any
do.
difference to what I
No,
suggest, but
no, it won't really. No, does it ever?
No.
Exactly. There we go. So I can come up with any old gobbledygook. We'll still get the same answer. Brilliant. Well, the challenge was, for the benefit of listeners, we were each to find, that is, any pre 2001 4x4. Stipulation was that it had to cost under £5,000 and have an MOT. And I think I've got a good one this week, but I'm desperate to hear, as I'm sure you are, what did James find?
Well, strangely enough, I was doing some other work, and this came up. And as you know, David, I'm very obsessed with Suzuki Jimneys, and this was a 2000 Suzuki Jimny, painted black, quite nicely finished, and it's a tiny bit of a bobtail type one. So it's riding on quite big tires, which are and wheels. The wheels are sprayed back. They're steel wheels, and that was 3495. Has a full MOT, and it just looks extremely amusing. And it is a convertible as well. So when you're stuck in the mud, you can appreciate what's overhead. So I just like the whole cuteness of it all. Really, it's sort of a K car off roader, and my obsession with the Suzuki Jimny continues.
Right, indeed it
So
does, yes.
yeah, absolutely. So that was my one because that was well under five anyway.
Right. Well, I found a car that you should have taken to Transylvania with Ms.
Oh, should
Pitt.
I? Oh, okay.
Absolutely. It's based on a concept car.
Yeah.
It's styled by Giorgetto Giugiaro,
Oh, good.
and it's a Subaru Vehicle X, otherwise known as a Subaru SVX. This one's a 1992 car, which is when it came out, and it's obviously permanent four-wheel drive. It's
Yeah.
got 230 bhp, 100 well, a 226 bhp boxer engine, six-cylinder. Unfortunately, the only thing about the SVX is it's got an automatic gearbox, which isn't as great, but this car looks in really good condition, and it's borne out by the MOT history. Only thing I'll say in the advert, they give you the registration number of it, which doesn't check out. I think they've got it wrong.
Yeah.
It says C8 SVX. It ties up to one registration C6 SVX, and don't ask me how I know that. I put lots of numbers in, basically, if you want to know the truth, to
Yeah.
find out. It's in silver with a black upper surface.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic. It still looks as good as it did, really, when it came out in 1992. It still looks as unusual as Swippy. The interior is a little bit is nicely patinated. It still looks in very good condition. Don't know. I imagine that all the toys work. They certainly don't give any indication that they don't. And there were plenty of toys in this, because back in the day, in '92, you had four-wheel drive, you had electronic anti-lock brakes. You had, and I'm going to read now from a previous bit I have written about it.
Mm.
So you had ventilated brake discs front and rear. You've got your four-speed automatic gearbox, and you have an electrically adjustable driver seat and air conditioning. And you've got lots and lots of glass in the car, so it's a nice glassy interior. Um, Essentially, really, it's only a two-seater. They say it seats four. At best, it's a 2+2. But that doesn't really matter, because you don't really want to use it, I think, for yourself and possibly someone else, or unless you've got very small kids. That's really all it's fit for. But it's quite a car. The example that's for sale has done just over 100,000 miles. It's not covered a lot of miles in the last few years, according to its MOT history. There's nothing at all drastic in the MOT history. It has a current MOT, but the seller says it will come with 12 months MOT, and it will come with a 3 months parts and labour warranty and 3 months roadside assistance. So that sounds pretty good to me, James.
No, I do like those. And you were talking about Ed Straker's car, and that's
Mm,
pretty much Ed Straker's car, isn't it? Really, I would
yeah,
say.
doesn't have gullwing doors, unfortunately.
No,
That's
I know, but it
but
looks the part, doesn't it?
it really does look the part.
Yeah.
It's a really lovely looking car, and this one looks in really good condition. And the MOT history doesn't show up any real nasties. You have the odd corroded coil spring, which you're going to get in a 29-year-old car, but there's
Mm.
nothing really. There's a deal breaker, I don't think. So it's on eBay just now. If you're at all interested in the SVX, and well, why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
Check it out. Yeah, I really think that's a great car, and I think that trumps your Jimny this week, James. I have to say.
Well, you say that, David, but I think my Jimny will go where your SVX fears to tread. You know,
Yeah, but
but I
I'll
would
be
say. Yeah, but the XJS has been going really, really well. It took in those auto routes extremely well. So
Uh-huh.
I'm quite happy. I'm not going to swap it, and neither is my partner.
It's not got a Triumph Stag engine in USGX, no.
No.
Right, well, it's had to get a dig in somewhere. Right, so we shall move on from the challenge. And motoring apparel, we talked about shoes recently.
Yeah.
But what I want to know, and again, I'm really desperate to hear your opinion on this, do you think hats are acceptable when driving? And if so, in what circumstances?
Well, they're not really, David. My dad always warned me about people wearing hats driving cars because you used to be able to see the outline of usually an old gentleman with a trilby on, and he just had no time whatsoever for people who wore hats in cars. It was just like, what are you on about? It made no sense whatsoever. And he thought it was an instant indication of a bad driver. And I must say, in 9 cases out of 10, pretty much right. So I don't think hats work. Uh, it depends on whether your heater's working. Then I think you can have a beanie hat on because sometimes I put mine on because all my cars have marginal heating at the best of times. So I do have to bring myself up to operating temperature with a beanie hat. But otherwise, yeah, unless you're uh, in a race where you are required by the rules to wear um, a tin lid on your head, I don't think hats are acceptable at all in any way, shape, or form.
All right.
I don't know if you found the same at all, David, or you might wear a top hat every time you go out. I don't know.
I'm tall enough, mate. I'm tall enough. I struggle to get into most cars as it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying about trilby hats.
yeah,
And I always figure if I see a car that's quite a narrow track but it's tall, I
mm,
always assume the driver is going to be wearing some form of hat, and
mm,
I'm seldom disappointed. And I think that's why they buy these cars so they can wheel
yeah,
hats on them. You know the cars I'm talking about.
yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I mean the only other thing I'd say is if you've got a convertible, if it's a very sunny day and
Yeah,
you're sort of slightly follically challenged, you might want to wear a hat. Well, just for health reasons, such as voice sunburn. Or if it's a very cold day, a beanie hat as you do.
yeah.
But okay, there may be an excuse for hats, James, in certain circumstances.
Mm.
What about stringback gloves? What about them? What do we have to say about stringback gloves?
Stringback gloves. Every pair of stringback gloves I've ever been given for Christmas has never been used. I've got a collection in like a top drawer of all these people who thought, oh, he likes cars, we'll get him stringback gloves. And there's nothing ironic about the purchase either. They just think, oh, that'll genuinely be useful because you've got an old car, so you must have stringback gloves. But really, it doesn't help the experience at all, does it?
Well,
And
yeah, no, it's disappointing. And that is disappointing because I have
mm,
visions of you in a sort of gabardine jacket with your stringback gloves on,
yeah,
driving along. Indeed, at the moment, driving through Europe with a
um,
missplit in the XGS with your stringback gloves and your gabardine jacket, and you're now telling me it's not true. It's not happening. Deary me.
well, I don't know. I'm a hands-on person, David. And really, I have to feel the wheel. And I can't have anything between me and the wheel. So it's probably a medical problem that I could take some, drugs for. But no, I can't. No, no. As much as I like the idea of it, and as you say, the Gabardine Mac, you can't get better than that. It's going to keep you dry in all sorts of circumstances. But the gloves, they're not really proper gloves, and no. So yeah, it's a skin to plastic
Right.
contact for me on the steering wheel.
Yeah, so you're a very tactile sort of chap
But
when it
I'm a
comes to
very extremely tactile to the
right,
point of it being, possibly legally actionable.
right. Oh, right, yeah. Okay, moving swiftly on. Uh, yeah, I mean, I do carry a pair of stringback gloves, but
Oh, you do?
that's just to slap people in the face with.
Oh, that's fair enough. Or you just want to challenge someone to a duel, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Dueling
Yeah.
pistols are always in the book.
Good.
Dueling water pistols in my case.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow me to have the real thing for obvious reasons. But yes, no, I'm not. I'm not a fan of any form of gloves. Again, I don't even like power steering much for the same reason because I like to feel what the car is doing. So yeah, we have it. So yeah, string back gloves. What about string vests? How are in string vests?
Oh, I love a string vest.
That's it. Yeah.
Mm.
So you drive along in your and the baby shark
Yeah.
with hatless, except possibly for a beanie in a cold day, and
Yeah.
gloveless. but with a string vest on.
Most likely, most likely. Yeah, I'll send you a picture, David. There we go.
Yeah, no, I think you should put it up on the internet for everyone
Yeah.
to see, because I mean, after all, I don't think I could keep that vision to myself. I think I feel obliged to share it with the world. Yes, so we'll move on from that before we get to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, there is one more thing. Tell I. There's
Oh,
one more
right.
thing. Wooden steering wheels. What entire nation is the point of those?
I don't know if you've got a wooden car. I suppose there's a one
Yeah,
reason for having it, but yeah, I've never really understood it
no.
particularly. Really.
I mean, they look good.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do look good. I'll give them that. I mean, I remember driving my boss's brand new Alpha 166. I think I've talked about that before as well.
Mm.
Many years ago in quite difficult circumstances. It was an AP Super. And it was a brand new car, but they had a wood steering wheel, and it was a cold day. And my hands were more or less frozen to it. Because I wasn't wearing the stringback gloves, you see. That was
No,
why.
that's right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I suppose the gloves would stop you getting splinters, wouldn't it? In a wooden steering
No,
wheel
probably
situation.
not.
No.
No, probably not. No, it was an Alfa Romeo, for goodness sake. You know, you don't get splinters in an Alfa Romeo, old boy. But no, I don't see the point. Again, it looks good. Something that looks good. It's there for effect. It's there for pose value, I suppose, or if you want to call it that. But in terms of actual practicality, no, don't see it myself. So anyway, we'll move on from apparel, etc., to one more thing, and that is something that we don't really have anymore in this country, and I feel quite bad about it.
Mm.
And that's motorrail. Do you remember motorrail, James?
I do very clearly, David. I have been on the motorrail.
Oh, you lucky man.
Yeah, went on the motorrail. It was some